Welcome back to the Allen Hour, everybody. I'm your host, Dylan Allen. Dan Destler, Andrew Allen joining me today. Once again, we're going to go through the college football playoff quarterfinals. I mean, what a start to the playoff. We have a lot to get to, guys, but the biggest headline was Miami, the upset win at Texas A&M. Andrew, got to give you your credit, man. You were all over it. You thought they would win the game. You took the spread, and it was a defensive clinic from start to finish. The wind played a factor in that game, but it was nice to see a refreshing game, just defensive battle on the field. We'll get to all the games coming up on Wednesday and on Thursday of this week, but wanted to spend a little bit of time kind of just breaking down some of the games from last week or 2 weeks ago, I believe now at this point. We've had the week in between. As I mentioned, the Miami game was the big stunner and the one that killed all of us. And for Dan and I to go 3-1 in our picks, for Andrew to go undefeated, was Oregon. James Madison able to get that backdoor cover. And I'll start with you, Andrew, because you had the pick of Miami and Dan and I had A&M. I want to hear your thoughts on how you thought the game went and how confident you feel in Miami going forward.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not exactly the game that I expected it to be. I don't think anybody really expected it to be 10-3. I thought there was going to be more scoring in it because I didn't think Texas A&M's defense was all that great, but they really did show up. I did think that Miami's defense was going to be very good, and they are very good. And I questioned the thought that because they're an ACC team, their D line, their O line, is not as talented as some of these SEC teams or some of these Big 12, Big 10 teams. Yeah, I disagree. I just thought that they were talented. They've been recruiting 4 stars, 5 stars. Mario Cristobal is a huge offensive line builder, huge builder in the trenches, and they showed they have talent all over the trenches, and they're really, really good. And I like their chances going forward.
Yeah, I'm a little upset with, how that game went, a 10-3 game. I was watching, I was like, is somebody just gonna score a touchdown here? But yeah, I think that I definitely agree with you, Andrew, with the part of Mario Cristobal. But I think that if Miami has a chance this week against Ohio State, that they can't go 3 of 12 on third down. Definitely, that was definitely a point of emphasis when I was watching the game. I was like, if these guys do this next week, Ohio State's going to run all over them. So, I'll definitely be looking at that and definitely a couple other things as well as we move forward.
Now, real quick, Dan, before we get to the games upcoming this week, what's your comfort level with Ole Miss? What did you like what you saw out of that Tulane game?
Yeah, I definitely liked how they came out and just, put the hammer down on them. That was awesome. But, Trinidad and Kwan both, being questionable after the game. Now with Kwan being probable, I was seeing that defense that they were talking about play really well against a Tulane team. Obviously, it's Tulane with the crowd. That atmosphere was awesome. I was seeing videos. It looked really cool. But definitely, I'm comfortable with them now that Kwan is probable. He was going to play if like, a limb was falling off him. I mean, he loves this. He's also a quick nugget. He's also about 200 yards away from breaking the Ole Miss single season rushing record as well, held by Quinshon Judkins. So.
There you go. So we'll be looking out for that for this game on Thursday for Ole Miss. So without further ado, let's get to the games starting Wednesday night, which might be the better game of the 4. We'll see. There's a lot of great games, to be honest. I don't think we're going to get any kind of result that we got last week with with a couple blowouts in respect to Ole Miss and for Oregon in most of that game. But let's get to the first game. We'll start with the game on New Year's Eve, Wednesday the 31st, 7:30 kickoff, Ohio State and Miami. That is the Cotton Bowl at AT&T Stadium, Jerry's World in Arlington, Texas. The spread, Ohio State minus 9.5. The over-under at 40.5 as of filming today on Tuesday. So this video will be up shortly later tonight. So again, if these lines move, I'm sorry to inform you, but that's where the line is right now, 9.5 in favor of the Buckeyes. And I'll start with this one, guys. The biggest thing for me when researching this game is I get the feel that Miami fans, the fans specifically, this is nothing to do with the teams that are currently playing. That Miami fans, I believe, still are holding on to that 2002 national championship loss that they are trying to somewhat avenge in 2025 with this matchup against the Buckeyes. For those of you at home that don't know what happened in this game, in 2002, Miami, they were on a 34-game win streak. They had won the national championship in 2001. They were looking to repeat as champions, as Ohio State is looking to do this year. In that game, Miami's down 17-7 in the third quarter. They come back. They tie it up at 17 apiece. They force overtime. Miami gets a 24-17 lead in overtime. Ohio State has the ball, 4th and 3 from the Miami 5-yard line. They got to convert to either extend or win the game. And the infamous pass interference call happens with Glenn Sharp getting the flag thrown, a late flag at that as well. And it unfolded where it happened in the end zone. And Ohio State got a fresh set of downs. They score. They force double overtime. They score there. And Miami loses the national championship game because of a late flag in the overtime period. And it was chaos because Miami was already on the field celebrating. Fireworks were going off in the stadium. I mean, that's how late this flag was. It was about 3 seconds after the play was over. The flag flew in from the back of the end zone. So I think Miami fans are really hungry for an upset here. I think the players are hearing it all week as well on campus, even though they were not pouring when this game happened for the most part. So while I acknowledge all of that going on, that's why there's so much juice for this game. I just can't get over the fact that Miami's offense did not perform to the level that we all thought they would, despite me picking Texas A&M to cover that spread. I thought Miami's offense would play a little bit better, and they struggled against an A&M defense that had been pretty good in some areas all year long. But I do think that they left a lot of meat on the bone in that game, and I was not impressed by them whatsoever. And the one thing that Ohio State has done well every game this year is defend the football, specifically in the run and just giving up points overall in total yardage. I think this is a game where Carson Beck throws those timely interceptions that Andrew was kind of banking on him not to do in that A&M game, and that's what kept him in that game against A&M. But I think in this game, he comes up with a couple timely interceptions. Maybe it's a fumble. Maybe Ohio State gets that pressure on him, forces a sack to end drives. I just don't see Miami being able to go to Malachi Toney or Mark Fletcher and that be the only way they can have production and for that to be sustainable. I don't think they have other guys that they can go to consistently enough against this great defense in Ohio State. And I do think that Ohio State is coming into this game with a chip on their shoulder. The game against Indiana, that's a tough game to lose. They were held scoreless in the second half. I think they are the hungriest team, one of the hungriest teams in the field right now. And I also think that just it's impossible to guard Jeremiah Smith. And the only way to really do it is if you double him or bracket him. You live and die by the sword because they got guys like Carnell Tate, Max Clare. It's a tough assignment for a defense that has been good in the trenches for sure. I just don't see them being able to sustain the success they had against A&M in a game like this against Ohio State, where I'm predicting Miami's offense can't sustain drives and the defense is on the field for most of the game. I think they tire out. I think Ohio State covers this 9.5 point spread. Dan, I'll go to you for your selection here in Ohio State, Miami.
Yeah, sure. I think that this game's going to be, a great starting game, for the quarterfinals, the college football playoff. But, I look at Miami again going 3 for 12 on third down. The player I'm watching is Carson Beck. He was supposed to be here 2 years ago, supposed to be here last year, but he got injured against Texas, I believe, in the SEC title game, which kept him out of the playoff. But, he needs to step up mightily. I think that there's only one way that Miami can win this game, and that's if Carson Beck plays otherworldly and that defense holds Ohio State to 3 points, which we obviously know is not going to happen. But Ohio State's a team, as you mentioned, with those weapons on the outside. They're very hungry. That loss to Indiana really lit a fire under them, and I think that they come out and just run all over. I think that they run all over Miami, and I'm taking them minus 9.5 as well.
Yeah, I think you guys brought up a couple good points, and I do think it's going to be the same deal as it was with Texas A&M. They're going to win the game in the trenches. It's going to be the O-line and it's going to be the D-line, but it's also going to be on Carson Beck. I didn't think Carson Beck would play as poorly as he did in that game against Texas A&M, and this is probably 5, 6, maybe even 7 times the defense that they're going to be facing in Ohio State. So I do think it's going to be one in the trenches. There is something that I did look at before we started recording because I was genuinely interested. You look at Indiana. Okay, how did Indiana win that game against Ohio State? Well, they sacked the quarterback 5 times. They got constant pressure on them. Ohio State hadn't allowed more than 1 sack in a game other than Purdue, where they had 2 all season. So he hasn't been under much pressure. He hasn't been on his butt a lot, and Indiana was able to do that to him. Now, I think Miami's defense is the most similar defense to Indiana Ohio State has played all year, and I think there's a chance that they might be able to do something similar to Julian Sayin in this game. I noted that 7 of the teams Ohio State has faced this year have been outside the top 70 in sacks per game. Miami this year, 7 of the teams that they've played have been inside the top 35. So I think their O-line is going to be pretty good in this game. I think they've been tested. I think he's actually going to have more time to throw, Carson Beck, in this game than he did in the last, because Texas A&M was a beast at getting the quarterback all year long. I think their D-line is going to be pretty good against the O-line. I think Julian Sain might be under pressure. But again, it comes down to Carson Beck. Does he make enough plays in this game to win the game for them? They're not going to really be able to run the ball as well, I imagine, as they did against Texas A&M. I don't think they're going to be able to pass the ball incredibly well either. So it's going to be tough for them to really get points on the board. But when I look at Ohio State, everybody talks about their wide receiver tandem, right? How do you stop Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate? How do you stop those two? I took a look around college football and I tried to find the two receivers, the other receiver duo in college football that I think is pretty similar to Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. And I think it's Mario Craver, and I think it's Casey Concepcion, who Miami just faced last week. They shut him down pretty well. Concepcion only had 33 yards. Craver had 92 yards, but one of those receptions was for 60. So other than that, he has 33 yards on the day as well. I think they did a pretty good job containing superstars like that. I do think Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are on a bit of a different level. They're not as like speedy as those two guys are, but they're really good contested catchers. So I think they could hurt him downfield. I'm going to take Miami covering the 9.5. I think their defense is just too good. I don't think they win the game. I think Ohio State wins the game, but we've seen time and time again when Ohio State faces some pressure and faces some good defenses, Julian Sain really hasn't been able to get the ball to his superstars as much, and I think that's probably going to continue in this game. I'll take Miami covering the points.
Yeah, really quick.
Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, yeah, I mean, we all knew that you were going to pick, the U over here, but
it feels
I'm
like Texas A&M again.
Exactly. I'm looking at Julian Sam. He arguably played the worst game of his career in the Big Ten championship. Through that pick on the opening drive. But I think that he's going to come out and just absolutely dominate. He's still ranked second nationally with his QBR, and he owns the best single season completion rate in FBS history. So I think he is really going to come out. He has the talent, the supporting cast. I think that he'll come out and just have that fire under his butt and just completely dominate.
And to add to this discussion, even though I'm picking Ohio State, here at the Allen Hour, I like to think that, we want to keep the fans and everyone informed to the best of their ability, even if it kind of goes against my selection. I'm just going to be a fair guy, especially if you're at home tailing our bets here and putting real money on this. I want to give you all the information that's out there. The one thing that does worry me with Ohio State, and this helps Andrew out tremendously, in my opinion, with his point again, with the Miami defensive front getting pressure. Ohio State, their right guard, believe his name is, where is he at here on my sheet? Right guard, Tegra Shabola. He has started 29 games over the last 2 seasons. He is out of this game. He's not playing. So you're going to have, and I was reading up, you're going to have a redshirt freshman and or a redshirt sophomore in Gabe Van Sickle and Josh Padilla filling in at that spot. So could that be an area where Miami dials up blitzes in that gap among the right guard, or just try and get the right tackle to help him out on some assignments and do a bit of a stunt blitz around that right side? There is potential for that to happen. And that is the one big worry for me with Ohio State, is how those guys fill in that role for Shabola at right guard, because again, that's 30 games of starting experience that you're not having in this game. So that does kind of worry me. But again, just to kind of put a bow on this for me, at least, my bet is just that Carson Beck and the offense will struggle, and that they won't be able to get away with their offense being solely through Tony and Mark Fletcher. They're going to have to figure out a way to get the ball to other guys in this offense and do it consistently. And Ohio State defensively has been the most consistent defense up there with Indiana and Texas Tech all year long. I just think Carson Beck struggles in this one, but I do acknowledge that that injury to Ohio State is kind of a crucial one for them going forward in this game. I think the biggest thing too, Andrew, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. One of the better things that Ohio State does on offense is they limit the home run plays. They don't give up a ton of yards per play. They keep everything in front. I think Miami's offense, with the athleticism of Tony and Mark Fletcher on the ground especially, they have the guys to make the big play, but Ohio State has the defense where they're just not going to give up the home run play. And in that case, I don't know if they're going to be able enough to move the ball down the field, having to rely on those 5-yard outs, those 10-yard posts, whatever the slants, if those home run plays are eliminated in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think Miami could score 24 points and win this game. I don't think they're going to need to go up and down the field over and over and over again because I do think their defense is that good. Now, will they get to 24 points? I don't know. I have 10 points to work with, or I guess 9.5 points to work with. The big issue is the offense. I mean, it's obvious. They played a Texas A&M defense that's just really not that great. And Ohio State, again, as I said, is probably 5 times better than them defensively. So it's going to be tough. I don't think that's the best Carson Beck we saw last week. I think he could be so much better than that. I think they went on the road in Texas A&M, a crazy environment early in the morning. Mario Cristobal's first game. It seemed like they were a little nervous to just play Miami football. It seemed like they were getting a little tricky in the first half of that game, trying to do trick plays. I know Malachi Tony has had his fair share of trick plays throwing the ball. They were trying to do too much stuff behind the line. And then eventually in the second half, they just got to a point where they were just running the football. They were getting down the field. They did miss a ton of field goals in that game too. But yeah, I think that they're going to just get back to what they were doing the most of the season, which is just relying on their run, letting Carson Beck complete his passes and go down the field. But you're right. I mean, it's going to be hard to beat them over the top. The entire offense can't be Malachi Tony, which a lot of it has been down the stretch. So it's going to be interesting to see if more playmakers can step up.
All right, so let's move on to the next game on Thursday, the first one on New Year's Day. That's a noon kickoff in Miami at the Orange Bowl. It's Oregon and Texas Tech in what might be the best game of the entire slate. The spread would reflect that. Oregon favored by 2.5. The over/under set at 51.5. And I'm going to go to Dan on this one because before we started recording, he was telling me this was the game he was most excited for, and I'm going to let him get right to it.
Yeah, so this game, I'm really excited for it. Obviously, not as much as I am for the Ole Miss Rebels to play the Georgia Bulldogs, but I'm very excited for this game. You look at both these teams. Texas Tech, they won every game by 21 points. In this season, They only played 5 teams with a winning record in this season. That's something that I was looking at, and 2 of them are against a BYU team. And let's face it, they're a good team, but they're not up to the level of any of these college football playoff teams. But I'm going to look at Texas Tech's offense here. Obviously, we know about their defense and how great they are with Jacob Rodriguez and company. But I'm looking at how consistent that they can be in the red zone as a whole. Obviously, I mentioned them playing 5 games against a winning record team, but not really sold on this offense, but I'm really sold on this defense. And I think that they have never played a game to this magnitude as a program, I believe, except for the Big 12 title game. But they've never played a game to this magnitude, and I think that they come out, and I'm taking Texas Tech plus 2.5. Um, I think that defense will carry them, and I think the offense will score just enough points to win this game. So, or just to lose by 2 or less. So I'm going to take Texas Tech plus 2.5, which a game I'm very, very excited for. Obviously, with Dante Moore on the other side, I'm going to look at him, and he's trying to get his draft stock up as well. Obviously, I don't know if he's going to go to the draft, but I don't know if you guys know. Did he declare yet, or is he? Does he have
I don't think
next
so.
year?
He has a chance to come back if he wants to.
Okay, so I'm gonna look at him and see how he performs in this game. And yeah, I think that with Oregon burning us last week, also that kind of leaves a little dagger in my heart as well. So I'm gonna take Texas Tech plus 2.5. In a game that I'm confident for. Also, we mentioned kickers, Dylan, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Stone Harrington, 22 of 27 on the season, and you want a kicker like that. Obviously, you've seen in games that it comes down to kicking, and you want a guy that like him with his legs. So again, Texas Tech plus 2.5.
Oh yeah, 100%. Kicking is super, super important late in games, especially when you're trying to cover a 2.5 spread.
Yep.
Andrew, we'll go to you next here.
Yeah, I just think it comes down to which defense makes more plays. And so far this season, I mean, that's been Texas Tech. They're the best defense by far in college football. Actually, I wouldn't say by far. I'd say they're pretty close with Ohio State. But for who they've played this year, they've just dominated everybody defensively. I mean, they're taking the ball away almost 3 times a game. I mean, that is incredible. I don't think I've ever seen that ever. A team averaging basically 3 takeaways a game. But my concern for them is this too many playmakers offensively for Texas Tech to handle? Have they had this all season? Have they had this in a team where they have to face a team with 3 running backs with over 500 yards, with 3 receivers with over 400 yards, with 2 tight ends with over 300 yards? I mean, Oregon is deep. Now, maybe nobody jumps off the page at you like a Jeremiah Smith or Mario Craver, Casey Concepcion, like this superstar athlete, but they got a bunch of solid guys that Dante Moore has a chance to get the ball to whenever they need to. I do think it's the most talented offense that Texas Tech has played by far. And I do think Oregon's defense is pretty underrated. You know, you mentioned the JMU heart stabbing last week. I think that defense let their foot off the gas a little bit at the end of that game. I mean, they were absolutely rolling in the first half, up by almost 30 points. Actually, it might have been 30 points. I mean, they were just crushing them. And I think it's hard to stay in a game like that when you're up 30, you're at home. It's a team that's obviously inferior to you. They can't move the ball. Uh, it seemed like Oregon could have put that game away several times. They had some timely turnovers in the red zone. I don't really buy too much into JMU's performance against Oregon's defense because I think there's a nice string of work that Oregon's put together defensively this season. I think they're pretty underrated. They have one of the better linebacker rooms in the country. And their run defense is very good, which is very important because Texas Tech has 2 really good running backs in Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams. So again, I think it's the best team that Texas Tech has played by far. I think the other team that they've played that might be arguably on par to some people was BYU, and they did it twice, and they beat the Stones off of BYU. At least it appears that they beat the Stones off of BYU, which score-wise they did, but they also forced 7 turnovers in those 2 games. Think Oregon's going to do that. I know they have an incredible ability to take away the ball, Texas Tech, but I can't imagine Oregon's going to turn the ball over 3-4 times in a game. And that's how Texas Tech really pulled away in that BYU game. In both those BYU games, they only scored 13 points in the first half. So it's not like they were killing them offensively. They had a lot of timely turnovers. Again, 7 in those 2 games. I'm going to take Oregon to cover the 2.5 and to win the game. I just think they're a more talented team. I think it's the most talented team. Again, Texas Tech has played all year, but I am willing to be surprised. I want Texas Tech to go out there and prove that they're not some like Big 12 team that can't compete with the Big 10 and the SEC. I want them to go in and I want them to show that they could really compete because I think if they show they could beat a team like Oregon, they could probably beat a team like anybody in the rest of college football, and it could be a really good run for them.
Listen, and the way I look at this is similar to the Ohio State Indiana game, where I just think it's going to be a slugfest, and whichever team in the trenches slugs the other team better is going to win this game. And I do think that Texas Tech defensively against the run, although Oregon is very good on the run as an offense, I think that's the difference of this game, making Oregon one dimensional and having the potential to do that. And we saw Dante Moore this year. He's been turnover prone. He's got 8 picks on the year. He had 2 last game against James Madison. And although they were up a bunch when he threw, I believe, the second one, I do think that there is a case to be made where this Tech defense, as you mentioned, Andrew, 3 takeaways a game, there's a chance that they can get 2 in this game, 1 or 2, maybe 3, and get up to that average. But I do think there is a legitimate chance that this defense can do that again, even with the talent Oregon has. And I was a bit skeptical about Tech's offense, especially in a spot like this. You mentioned them struggling against BYU, but the numbers in terms of yards per game in the air and on the ground don't reflect that. Maybe they just have an issue in the red zone once they get there, but they rank 9th in the country passing yards a game at 290. They rank 28th in rush yards a game at 191. So maybe it's just an issue of scoring in the red zone, but they've been able to move the ball, get yards, and they've been able to take care of the football, specifically in Baron Morton, just 4 interceptions this year, and 2 of them came against Utah back in September. So 2 interceptions since then. He's been out for a couple games. He hasn't lost a game as a starter either. Their only loss to Arizona State, he was not playing. It was the backup Will Hammond that was playing in that game. And I just think that this game comes down to the better defense. And I think while Oregon's defense has played good, this year, they've also shown the ability to get burnt in certain spots. And I will use the James Madison game as a benchmark. And maybe you could just chalk it up to they took their foot off the pedal or they just stopped trying because they were up so many points. But giving up 500 yards to James Madison at home is not nothing. Like, I'm going to look into that and say, okay, this is a defense that gave up points. Then you look back at the Penn State game on the road at Penn State. That's a game they had won. But Penn State offensively was able to get the yards, get the points, and force overtime. Oregon won in the game in the end, but they were up 2 touchdowns. And that defense gave up a couple scores to get Penn State back into that game. So Oregon this year defensively has had good games, but they've also shown the ability to give up a lot of yards and to be burnt. And I think that Texas Tech on the ground does have a good shot of beating this Oregon front, keeping the ball for long periods of time. And I think the biggest thing, as I mentioned at the start, is if Tech can make Oregon one-dimensional and make Dante Moore make plays, I think he is turnover prone, maybe for a pick or two or a fumble. And I think that that is enough for Texas Tech to cover this spread. And I said a couple weeks ago when we previewed the field, when they announced all the teams in this tournament, I said Texas Tech was my dark horse to make a run. And I stand by it because their defense has been very, very good this year. So I'm going to take Texas Tech plus the 2.5. But yeah, I'm with you guys and you, Andrew, on this. Like, this is a game where I really want them just to win the game as well. But it is definitely the game where I tinkered the most on picking a side because it is a close spread. And I do think that that line, a lot of it has to do with how that game against JMU unfolded last week. And I think had they won that game 51-17 and maybe didn't throw that interception late that gave JMU a touchdown, this might be closer to a 7-point spread. So I do consider that into this equation. I'm not ignoring that. But I do think Texas Tech with the better defense, I think Baron Morton takes care of the football. I think Texas Tech covers this 2.5-point spread. So let's get on to, unless you guys have anything else.
Defense wins championships, Dylan.
Yeah, listen, that's the bank of this bet. I just think that they're able to play a clean game. They have a lot of guys up front that can wreck a game for you in the run game, and I think they have the chance to do it here against Oregon.
I do want to point out.
Yeah.
I do want to point out, if you look at the stat sheet, if you look at what these teams have put on the field and put on paper, it's like Texas Tech. Like, Texas Tech would be the pick. I just don't know if Texas Tech has played a team to the level of Oregon yet, has been tested this much. So we'll see. We'll see. Again, if they win, Texas Tech wins, like, that would be awesome. I want to see that Texas Tech is legit. I want them to show it to me. I hope they do.
It's the year of the oil money as well.
Well, yeah. Well, thus far, it's me and Dylan against Andrew in these bets.
I know. It's not looking good for us, Dan.
Yeah, shit. Andrew's seen the field well.
Well, let's hope we agree with this pick because I have a hard time believing Andrew picks the other side of this game. So we'll see what happens here. But we'll go to the Rose Bowl out in Pasadena, California. Alabama taking on the top-ranked Indiana Hoosiers. This one also on Thursday. This one at 4 p.m. I'll let Andrew start off with this one because, as I mentioned, I have a hard time believing he's going to go with one of these teams in red, and we'll see if I can confirm that here.
Well, I'm definitely going to pick a team in red, so that's for sure. This is the sentence that I wrote down on my sheet right here for this game. This is the first and only game on the slate that we're going to cover that I believe is genuinely not even close. Yeah. Not even close. Okay, I think Bama is so much better than. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. No, I think Indiana. Is a lot better than Alabama. Now, there's always that kind of thing in the back of people's minds. Well, it's Alabama. It's Nick Saban. This is a historic program over the last 20 years, and to think that I'm going to be taking Indiana to cover a 7-point spread against Alabama in the year 2025 is absolutely insane. But I'm going to do it because Indiana's prolific at running the ball. They have 3 running backs with over 450 yards. 2 of them have over 800 yards on the year. Guess how many Alabama has over 450 yards? 1. Their other guys have under 300 yards. They rush for maybe 200 yards. It's not even close. It's not even close to me. I have a team that runs the ball better. I have a team that passes the ball better. I have a better O-line. I have a better D-line. I have a team that stops the run better. I have a team that stops the pass better. And this is an incredibly one-dimensional Alabama team, okay? They can't run the ball. So I have to rely on Ty Simpson to throw the ball. he can't seem to get the ball to Ryan Williams, or Ryan Williams doesn't seem to want to get open. He's got talent out there, but I haven't really seen him throw down the field in quite a long time. Fernando Mendoza, he completes 72% of his passes. He's throwing the ball basically 10 yards down the field on every attempt. He barely turns the ball over. He throws a lot of touchdowns. Ty Simpson, he had a great touchdown to interception ratio in the middle of the season. I think at one point he was like 22-0. The problem is he's got 5 picks on the year now, and 4 of those 5 picks have come in the last 5 games. He's starting to turn the ball over. Their inability to run the ball is really starting to catch up with them. I saw them play against Georgia. I think Indiana's defense is better than Georgia, and I don't think it's that close that they're better than Georgia.
No,
I
it's
think
not
he's
close.
really, really going to struggle in this game. I think Indiana is by far the better team. Indiana has 5 guys with 5 or more sacks on that defense. They have 5 cornerbacks with 4 or more pass breakups. They got 4 guys with multiple interceptions. They're just deep. The team's deep. The team's disciplined. I just think they're better in every single facet, and I love that I'm getting 7 points in this game. This might come back to bite me. Who knows? Alabama could make a run, could turn into the team that we saw maybe in the beginning of the year.
They can't run the ball. Don't get afraid.
Yeah, did you see
I'm
them
just
against Oklahoma
protecting
to
myself.
start?
I'm just protecting
They
myself.
can't
you
run
know?
the damn football.
I'm half saving the graphic. I think this is by far and away. If I could put a lock next to it, I know the lock next to the pick hasn't been so great on the show yet, but if I could put the lock next to one of the picks, I'll put the lock next to this one.
That's uncalled for, man. I was gonna put the lock next to this one too, so we're going
I
down
was-
together.
I was going to put the lock next to the
All right,
next
it's
one.
Okay, so
No,
Alabama's
I'm
going to
just
win by
kidding.
30 points.
Yeah. Well, I just, I definitely agree with you, Andrew. Indiana on offense and defense, they rank top 10 in key stats. So I think that, the thing that they're going to face are these 4th downs. And I have it right here. The Hoosiers ended the season 8 of 16 on 4th down, which is tied 90th nationally, and ranks well below teams like A&M, Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama. So if they want to win the national championship, it's going to come down to key 4th downs. I think that they're going to have to execute on that. But I think, I don't think it's close. Obviously, with that Alabama start last week, I forgot how much they went down, but they looked horrible.
They were down 17-0, right?
Yeah,
Early
to start
on.
that. I mean, it was horrible. And then
And they
they
gifted it
came
to 'em.
back, obviously, but I think that, Indiana could, win this game, obviously, if, they execute a well-balanced offense. I don't think that Alabama will come close to what they put up. The lock of this Allen Hour episode is Indiana, so I'm going to take Indiana as well. Spread.
I think the big thing too, we talk about Alabama, their inability to run the ball, and that's been a season-long problem. But there's another one too that we're not talking about. It's Ryan Williams, and he's just not involved in this offense. And when they throw it to him, he's dropping passes. Like, this is an issue. I'm starting to think he's just a flash in a pan, and he's 1 foot out the door with this program. Like, it would not surprise me if he's in the portal, if they lose this game, within a week of that loss, we get the tweet from Pete Thamel, whoever it is, that he's in the portal, because they don't throw him the ball, and when they do, he's not catching the ball. So this is another thing that's just insane to me, because he looked like he had so much promise last year in that game against Georgia, and this year he has just not lived up to it. So I'll be short and sweet. I'm with the two of you on this. I'm surprised this spread was so low. I'm actually wondering why they felt only 7 points was justified when Ohio State's getting 9.5 against Miami. I don't see how Alabama's that much better than a team like Miami, at least in what we've seen up to this point. Like, Oklahoma should have won that game last week or 2 weeks ago. Let's not forget that. They gifted them the game. It was the reversal of roles from the previous matchup where Bama outplayed Oklahoma and they gifted Oklahoma the win. And then this time, the same thing, just the other way around. So I don't know what the odds makers are seeing here, the people who make the lines, but this 7 points seems all too free. And it makes me question my pick a little bit, because
Look,
I would think Indiana should be getting at least 10.
This 7 points, it opened at 7 points. Okay,
Yeah,
so it hasn't moved. So
Right.
that means that there are bettors that are on Alabama, and I'm probably going to say probably 65%, 70% of bettors look at this game and is like, oh my God, Alabama's getting 7 points in a playoff game. I'm going to take Alabama. Dude, I don't
Non-knowers,
think a lot of people are sitting down watching and saying, wow, they should have lost to an Oklahoma team that is not very good to begin with. I don't know if people are looking at it that way. The Ryan Williams case study, it's unbelievable.
crazy.
I wonder if it's a product of NIL. The guy just had an incredible freshman campaign, got his money, and is kind of like, you know what? I'm probably going to be a first-round pick regardless of how I really do. I don't even know what's going on with that. They got to figure out a way to get him the ball, because when he has the ball in his hands, he's an incredible playmaker. The problem is he can't seem to get the ball in his hands when the ball's coming his way. So I don't know what to think of it. Obviously, he's an X factor, because if he can get going, then that's an added factor that hasn't really been involved in this Alabama offense. But yeah, that case study, it's a wild one.
So I just opened up FanDuel. Um, Alabama is now plus 7.5, and you can get Indiana at plus money minus 7.5.
Indiana at plus money?
Yeah, you can get them. You can get
Oh,
their
oh, I
spread
see.
plus
I got
money.
you. Okay.
It's plus 100, but you can get that spread at plus 100 for 7.5 minus 7.5. So
Like, just and we'll address that, I guess, if you have anything else, Andrew. But just to get back to the Ryan Williams thing, like, I'm looking at his games this year. He's only cracked 100 yards once. It was against Wisconsin, which they are horrific. That was back in September. He had 165 yards and 2 scores. He had 98 against Vanderbilt, but every other game this year, he has not had more than 72. And outside of that game, he hasn't eclipsed 50. So there's been games, I believe if my math is right, he's had 6 games where he's been held under 50 yards, and he's been averaging like 4 or 5 catches a game. And the drop issues is the main reason why some of his reception numbers aren't higher. So it's just really, really interesting to me that he might have peaked at 17 years old and might be kind of done with Alabama football that soon. The biggest thing too, you mentioned, Andrew, that Simpson has struggled throwing interceptions lately. A lot of that has to do with Oklahoma getting pressure. They were able to strip sack him as well in the first meeting. If anything taught us, if we learned anything from Indiana's defense in that game against Ohio State, is they can get pressure. Now, I know they don't have Stephen Daly, who got hurt celebrating after the win in some freak accident, but his season's done, which sucks. And he's getting 5.5 sacks this year. So that's definitely a guy that they're going to miss. But you mentioned they have 4 other guys outside of him that have 5 or more sacks. So if anything, you would have to think Indiana gets pressure all day. Simpson makes bad decisions like he's done under pressure pretty much all season. And then who knows if IU turns a couple of those takeaways into points. So I don't see a path unless this Indiana defense, for whatever reason, doesn't show up like they have for 13 games this year. I don't see them covering this. And for people at home also thinking back to last year in this spot, Ohio State, the 8 seed. I know Alabama's the 9 seed, but this same game, Ohio State coming into the Rose Bowl, playing the number 1 team, Oregon, that hadn't lost a game all year, won the Big Ten championship. You cannot draw a comparison from that game last year and that Ohio State national championship team to this year's Alabama team, because they cannot run the football. Ohio State, they showed you last year they can do it. They just happened to lose in the regular season to Michigan and to Oregon at the final second of that game that kept them out of the Big Ten championship game. This is not the case for Alabama. They are not coming into this game. They're not even playing good football coming into this game. I'll give them credit. They had a nice comeback at the end of Oklahoma, and Ty Simpson can't control what John Mateer does on the offensive side, so he throws an easy pick 6. I'm not holding that against Ty Simpson in the offense, but they have not been that impressive. And quite frankly, as all 3 of us were on Bama last week, we got lucky that they ended up winning that game and covering that spread for us, because all signs were pointing towards Oklahoma early on in that game, and Mateer in the offense actually looked pretty good. So I was worried for a little bit. We got a little bit of luck on our side in that game, but I just don't see Indiana not covering this 7 points. And even if it's 7.5, like Dan, you just said, I would take that too, because I think this should be at least 10 points in favor of the Hoosiers.
Yeah, so, just to add on, just 2 quick things, and then we'll move on to to Dan's Ole Miss game here.
Sure.
A lot of people I've seen, and maybe I'm foresighting a comment that's going to come. A lot of people are like, well, Indiana's defense, they get a lot of sacks, late in games when they're up by 1,000,000 points and teams have to pass, and they know teams have to pass. Yeah, Alabama has to pass. They're already in that spot. They cannot run the football. Okay, that's not an option. You can't ask a team to do something that they haven't been able to do all year. That's in the great words of Bill Giordano. Shout out if you're watching. And another thing, now this is dangerous, and don't listen, only gamble what you can lose. I've never done this before. Usually when a team is favored by 7, I'll buy them down to 4 if I really like them, because, I just want to win my bet. I might start buying points the other way. I might start taking Indiana the 8, the 9, the 10. I've never done it before. I'm not
Put the
saying
paycheck on there.
I might do that because that's how confident I am that they can like genuinely win this
Yeah,
game
me
by
too.
double digits.
Me too.
I love it. Maybe I'll tell you. Listen. I think they win this by 2 touchdowns or more. So I'm right there with you. In fact, if I had to give you a score prediction, I'm thinking 31-17.
Sure.
That's probably right where I'm at. Just because I do think Alabama
You think
can
score
score
17?
31-17. I do think they have the offense to score. It's just that once the game progresses, it gets more and more difficult to sustain that offense where it's just pass only. And if they're down 2 scores for most of it, they're not even going to try and establish any kind of run game because they have to throw, as you're saying, Andrew. So I think we're all in agreement on that game. I'm surprised that line is so low. Let's hope for our sakes Alabama doesn't win this game by like 10 because then we'll look like complete fools. So now let's get to the game that I know this one confirmed Dan is the most excited for. His Ole Miss Rebels taking on SEC opponent rival Georgia Bulldogs. That one down in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl. This will be the nightcap on New Year's Day, 8 p.m. kickoff. Georgia currently favored at 6.5 points. The over-under is the highest one of the slate at 55.5. So Dan, I will let you kick things off. This is your team. This is your bloodline. You were in Nashville, or this is your lifeline, not your bloodline. You were in.
It's everything. No, I'm just
It's
kidding.
it's everything. You're wearing the
Yeah.
hat right now, I assume. Yep, you're wearing
Yeah.
the hat. So I'll let you just take it. Go for it.
Well, I think that the over under is the highest because the teams combined for 78 points in their first matchup.
Yep.
But first I'm gonna focus on the Ole Miss Rebels, obviously. And I'm gonna start with them. A player to watch, obviously, is Trinidad Chambers. He played so well against Georgia. He had 3 total touchdowns, and he had one of them through the air and 2 of them on the ground. Georgia only held Kawan Lacey to 12 carries for 31 yards. He scored 2 touchdowns. But if the Ole Miss Rebels want to win this football game, it comes down to 2 things. It comes down to, can their defense stop Georgia? They can't let Georgia hang up 43 points again because they're not going to win this game. But I think that if Kawan Lacey, who is probable now, he was asked today at media day if he's going to play, and he said yes. So that's coming right from the source. So
There you go.
that's a relief right there. And Trinidad also went down with injury, and he's fine. So I think that Trinidad and Kawan are obviously the 2 players to watch on offense. But again, I mentioned this last week with the 4 receivers that have over 500 yards. I was watching the tape a couple of weeks ago, actually a couple of days ago, I should say. And Ole Miss was feeding their tight end, who is 6'4", 265 pounds, in Daquan Wright, and they were feeding him early and often. I think that they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to pick apart that defense. And I look at Princewell and I look at Will Eccles, and I think that those guys need to really anchor down on this defense because, as I mentioned, they get hung up 43 on them. They're not going to win this football game. I think that they need to get Kuan going early and often. And I think that Trinidad needs to continue to be the Winnidad Chambliss that we know. I think that there is a good chance that they win this football game, and I'm going to take them straight up, and I'm going to take them plus 6.5. I don't really like to bet on my squads unless it's like the Tulane game, but
Right.
I have this feeling they're playing in Louisiana. It's not far from Mississippi. I think that they come out and they win this football game. I think that I think that Trinidad, he's looking obviously at this game. I love how he's not even talking about the future, which is awesome. He's getting asked about going to LSU with Lane and stuff like that. He goes, first of all, I don't think that's allowed. I don't think I'm allowed to talk about that. And second of all, I'm just focused on winning this football game. And I'm looking at Drew Bobo, the center for Georgia. He went down with a foot injury, and his dad is Mike Bobo, the offensive coordinator. And there's something about that teams that get these 2 weeks rest or 3 weeks rest, I should say. Sometimes I'm really not sure with them, like the Texas Tech. They had a couple weeks off, but I'm confident in them, and I'm also confident in the Ole Miss Rebels that they win this football game. Coach Golding, obviously, he looked very comfortable on that sideline. Usually, he's up in the booth, but he looked very comfortable on that sideline last week. I'm going to take them plus 6.5, and I'm super excited for this game. Super nervous as well. I tried to go to this game, but the two grand wasn't in the budget for me. Yeah, I think that Georgia's offensive line is great. They're one of the better ones in the SEC. And I think that, there's one thing I want to mention. In Georgia's past 4 games, they haven't allowed 81 rushing yards or 274 total yards of offense. And those opponents were Texas, Charlotte, Georgia Tech, and Alabama. So do with that, with what you will. But I think again, they need to come back. I think they need to come out strong and start firing. And I really think that Pete Golding's really on that defense this week. And I think that Ole Miss, I'm taking them plus 6.5, and I'm taking them plus 190 on the money line as well. And I have the box score from that game, and I'm looking at it, and they really need. I'm looking at like the defense stats. They had 1 sack in this game. If you want to beat Georgia, you're gonna have to create pressure, somehow, and not let them win. But yeah, Ole Miss plus 6.5.
Well, I'm glad you finished with talking about how great the Georgia defense is, because that's how I'm going to start my analysis on this game. They look closer and closer every single week to prime Georgia. Now they've had 3 weeks off since that, or 2 weeks off since is it 3
2
weeks
weeks.
since the SEC championship?
2 weeks, yeah.
2 weeks off since the SEC like 2.5 weeks off since the SEC
I
championship
call it
game.
3.
They look closer and closer to prime Georgia. They really, really do. In September and October, they had 3 games where they allowed more than 24 points. That was Bama that scored 24 points. Ole Miss got 35 on them, and Tennessee was in the 40s. In November and December, their last 4 games, they allowed under 21 points a game, 10 and under versus Texas, Georgia Tech, and Alabama. That is like special stuff. Now, you could say Texas's offense, not great. Georgia Tech, ACC team. We've already talked about Alabama. I don't think we need to talk about how their offense stinks anymore. So that's true. But their defense is getting pressure. Their defense looks really good. And it seems like that's what they're going to be relying on again. I do not think they're going to need to score 43 points again to beat this Ole Miss team. I don't think they're going to need to, because I think their defense is that much better. Now, I do have a concern with the Georgia offense. It looks like Ole Miss didn't lose a step offensively, even though they lost Lane, right? Trinidad Chambliss said over and over again, as long as I got my OC, we're going to be fine. And he got his OC. His OC was there, and they looked incredible. They looked better. They looked fine. What concerns me offensively for Georgia, not a ton of playmakers on that side. I mean, outside of Zachariah Branch, you really can't name too many guys that are going to show up and stand out. He's the only receiver on that team with over 700 yards. Ole Miss has 5 guys with over 500 yards. So there's a little bit of a different, deeper level to Ole Miss's offense than there is to Georgia's offense. I do think Georgia can run the ball. I think Gunnar Stockton's starting to run the ball better. But Kyron Lacey on the other side running the ball, I mean, he's big time. That is a big-time running back to have. They've done it over and over again at Ole Miss. You mentioned Quinshon Junkins. But Georgia has solid running backs, as I mentioned, and their quarterback can run the ball a little bit too. The Ole Miss defense is concerning to me. I don't think, like Georgia, their defense has gotten better. I think it's kind of the same. You did point out that they had 1 sack against Georgia in their first meeting. They're going to need to have more than that, as you pointed out, because that's going to be big. If they can get to Gunnar Stockton, put some pressure on him, I think it could be a different outcome. Unfortunately, I'm going to take Georgia to lay the 6.5. I'm going to take them to win. Now, look, they were my national championship pick. I forecasted this matchup, so I had this in account in my back of my head already. But as I dug into it, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to take Georgia minus the 6.5. I'm really interested to see if Dylan will make it now 3 picks that you guys are both against me on. And
that's my guy.
I hope it is, because I'm the underdog.
Spoiler, I will not. I also will be taking the Georgia Dogs 6.5. And there's not as much analysis into this one that I've had on other games. I think the biggest issue or worry for me, possibly backing Ole Miss in this game, is Kawan Lacey. Although he's going to play, he also left the game against Tulane twice for that shoulder injury. So my worry is that any kind of contact that maybe moves it around, he gets out of the game. I can't rely on an Ole Miss team without a Kawan Lacey for possibly a couple quarters, maybe the rest of the game, whatever happens. And if it's that, close to being messed with again, I'm not banking. I'm banking on him being out of this game for a little bit of time. So I took that into account as well. I don't know really the status that he's at. I know he's trying to play.
He's fine.
I give him all the credit in the world. But I just have that feeling that as soon as he gets that big hit or he lands funny on the shoulder, there's potential that he could be in the tent. He could go to the locker room, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there on my TV going, he's hurt. Like, what? I just don't
Season's
want to go
over,
through
yeah.
that. Don't want to go through
Well,
that. I'm foreseeing that happening in some regard. So that's big for me. I also don't like Ole Miss defensively in this game. I think Georgia's offense, especially, is trending upward, even though they haven't looked all that special in terms of playmakers, like Andrews alluding to. I just think that they are a coherent unit that can run the football, that can stop the run defensively as well. And although the first matchup was a shootout, I don't see Ole Miss having as much success offensively in this game. So I'm going to take Georgia minus the 6.5. Not a lot of analysis for me. Again, I'm kind of just thinking Kawan Lacey maybe leaves this game for a period of time with the shoulder injury, maybe tweaks it around again. And I like Gunnar Stockton. He's been trending upwards. And I was on Georgia in the Texas game when they played earlier in the year. They blew them out. I went against them in the Alabama game. They blew them out. And so I'm just also learning my lesson here. I think Georgia is trending upward. And although 7 points maybe seems like a big number in a spot where Ole Miss offensively you would think can score, I still think that they find a way to cover this 7. So I'm going with the dogs minus the 6.5. So I'm only with Dan on, was it 2 picks
two,
here, Andrew?
two,
So let's
two
hope
picks.
that your luck doesn't go the other way with me me
Well,
agreeing with 2 of your picks.
well, there's one thing I want to mention quickly is that you know who Ole Miss's backup running back is? It's Trinidad Chambliss. I mean, like, I'll be
It's
honest with you,
true. It's true.
their backup. His name is Logan Diggs. He's got 179 yards and 4 touchdowns this year. I think that Kwan, he's got to get that shoulder. I mean, there's got to be like wrapping braces, whatever the hell he needs to stay intact because without him, their offense is super one dimensional. So,
It is incredible
'Cause
to me that this is a 6.5 point spread, and the last one we covered was 7,
yeah,
or now a 7.5.
well,
These two teams are so much closer to each other than those other two teams, and I
okay,
hate to
yeah,
harp
all
on
right,
it
that's
too, but
fine.
it's just like it's unbelievable to me that like these are the same numbers.
Alabama fans, make sure to leave some comments if you're in here
Please,
watching. Please,
please.
we
I know
want to
that
hear from
Oklahoma
y'all.
fan's probably gone now because we were proven right last week. So
Boy,
thanks for
get him
watching.
out of here.
Come back, please. I know you're probably gone, but it's okay.
Yeah, Oklahoma, what a pile of you know what. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
John Mateer.
yeah, John Mateer, exactly. Handed it to him.
Yeah,
The other thing too is didn't Chambliss leave the game against Tulane for a little bit, or at least he
yeah,
was dinged up at points.
he's
So
fine too.
he's
Don't
fine,
worry,
but that's
don't
another
worry
guy that
about
I
him.
also I'm just saying it's another guy I'm looking at where anything can happen. A little retweak
Sure.
here and there, and all of a sudden he's out for a quarter or maybe the rest of a drive. I'm just not comfortable betting on that in a game where I think Georgia will be able to score points and hold Ole Miss minimal gains on the ground. So that's where I'm at with that. Now, Dan, you had a good idea before we started recording to give our top remaining quarterbacks left in the football playoff. There's 8 of them. There's 8 teams. So since Dan, it was your idea.
I'll
I
go
will let you
last.
have. You want
Let
to
me
go
go
last?
last. Let me go
Save the best
last.
for last. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I'll go first. So I'll
Sure.
take some of the heat from you guys. If I don't, it's all good. This is all good and fun. At the end of the day, I'm gonna
And
go.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead,
there's
Dan. What
one
were you
thing.
gonna say?
I gave this to them about 30 minutes ago. So chat, like all the YouTube comments,
Hey, don't flame us, bro.
they had no time to do this. I should have told them earlier, but I saw it about 45 minutes before we went on air.
Yeah, exactly. But I would like to think some of these picks are kind of layups.
Yeah.
And if we're
Yeah.
really arguing about the bottom 3 quarterbacks left, then
Go
who
ahead.
really cares at that point? Then they're all not that great. So it's compared to the top, at least, it's not really worth fighting for. But leading off my list, I got the Heisman winner, Fernando Mendoza. I don't know if that's really a layup because I can hear arguments for Julian saying Dante Moore. And quite frankly, just because of the upside ability, Trinidad Chambliss, like I can hear all those
Yeah.
arguments out. I just think in terms of what he's done this year, there's a reason he won the Heisman. I'm going to put him first. I got Julian saying at 2. Maybe that's a bit questionable for some of you guys, but I think there's a reason he finished top 4 in voting in the Heisman polls. I really do think he's been super consistent. And even in the game against Indiana, he didn't have his best game, but he also didn't have that poor of a game. He was still averaging 9 yards of completion, only had 8 incompletions, had 260 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. So even from him, it was not the worst game at all. It was just Indiana's pressure that was able to get to him consistently. I got Dante Moore at 3. I got Trinidad Chambliss at 4. Gunnar Stockton 5. Ty Simpson 6. Carson Beck 7. And Baron Morton at 8
Oh
for
man.
Texas Tech. And I kind of tinkered with I had it first. I had Ty Simpson at 7, Morton at 6, Beck last. I kind of tinkered and played around with it, but I moved
Andrew,
them
what do you think
around.
about that?
So that's the list. So the bottom 3 are Simpson, Beck, Morton. That's what I got.
Andrew?
I'll tell you what, I feel like my list is going to be completely different than everybody else's, just
Oh
based
god,
on
here
what
we
I
go.
heard and how many head nods Dan gave in agreement over there. All right, so I have Fernando Mendoza at 1.
Fair.
I do have Fernando Mendoza at 1. I kind of rank these at like impact. Like I think these guys have the impact. Like okay, I'll just keep going. Dante Moore I have at 2. I think he's pretty special.
That's
I
fair,
think he
yeah.
takes care of the
Yeah.
ball. I think he dishes it well to everybody. I have Winidad Chambliss at
Wow.
3
Wow.
because I think he has that much of an impact on that offense.
4.
I have Gunnar Stockton at 4
Mm.
because I think he's really I made the point about they don't have a ton of playmakers. He's still incredibly efficient, great completion percentage, great yards per attempt. I think he's tremendous. I have Carson Beck at 5.
Whoa.
Where's Julian
Yeah,
saying, buddy?
Yeah, I was gonna say
we're gonna get. I have Carson
he
Beck at
keeps
5.
going
I think he's
down.
extremely underrated. I think he's a lot better than what he showed last week at Texas A&M. I have Julian Sayin at 6.
Wow.
And I put Julian Sayin here because the what I saw was the 2 best defenses he played. I don't think he played that well. He played against Texas in the first game of the season. Now, given that's his first start, you don't have to take too much into that. But I think the most defense he played besides Texas was at the end of the year in Indiana, and he didn't play that well either. I mean, he's got Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, who everybody knows is the best wide receiver duo in the league. I think he probably should, against Purdue and Rutgers and UCLA and all these teams that he played in the middle of the year, complete 74% of his passes. I just haven't been as impressed because I haven't seen him show up against big time competition. And obviously that can change if he tears up the Miami defense that I've been hyping up. At 7, I have Morton. I have Baron Morton. I think he's been pretty good for Texas Tech in the same way that Gunnar Stockton, in the same way that Dante Moore's kind of dishing it to everybody. I think he does a good job of that as well. He gets it to really everybody and has a high completion percentage. And just based on the way he finished the season and has been playing, I have Ty Simpson last. And I think that has a lot to do with their inability to run. I think it really hurts him as a quarterback and hurts his ability to impact the game. So that's who I have at last. I'll tell you what, I think that Julian Sayin thing might come back to bite me. I put him.
You might get some heat.
I
can't
might have my Ohio
believe
State
you could have had Carson Beck lower. Did you have him lower than Morton?
No, I have Morton last.
But you debated it.
I had Beck last for a little bit, and then I moved it around a little bit. But listen, because the thing is with Simpson, like being ahead of Beck, is I don't hold Alabama's inability to run the ball against Ty Simpson. Like it's not his fault that either his line can't block or his runners can't find the correct holes. I don't hold that. And so then when they become one-dimensional, honestly, I find it I find it super impressive that it took until like game 13 for him to start imploding. The fact that they haven't been able to run the ball all year and he was able to like have only 2 picks through 10 games, it's pretty impressive to me, at least. For being a one-dimensional team for most of this season. So I kind of had him up there. I saw the potential. He made a number of nice throws against Oklahoma a couple weeks back. Ryan Williams dropped a couple balls, but a couple deep balls to get them back in that game. He made a couple nice throws. So I give him credit. And listen, Beck, I didn't put him last. I moved him because I figured Baron Morton. The only thing I could really write home about him was that he just took care of the football, but there was nothing super special. So I put him last. So go ahead, Dan. Round us off.
I like this. This is why, I brought this up because I like the back and forth between the 2 Allen brothers here. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to take Fernando Mendoza number 1. Julian Sayin at 2. Okay. Trinidad at 3. Now I'm going to go back to 2 and 3. I think Trinidad and Julian are neck and neck with each other. I think it's very close. Give me Dante Moore at 4. Gunnar Stockton 5. And then my 6 and 7 are very, you can just pick an argument for that. I'll take Carson Beck at 6, Ty Simpson at 7, and Baron Morton at 8. I don't think.
Yeah, and you just wanted to be different from me, man. We were in lockstep through the first 4, and then you saw the heat I got for having Carson Beck so low.
I had
him up a spot.
It's on my list, yeah.
That's okay.
Well, I think that Gunnar Stockton, Dante Moore. I think that if you take him 4 or 5. I don't think that matters, to be honest.
I'm just waiting to see Julian Sayin take over a game, and
I haven't
seen it yet. I haven't seen it. He might. Yeah, he might.
I have so much faith in that spread.
I'll tell you what. The guys that I've ranked in the top 5 ahead of him, I've seen them like, okay, they won this game because of that guy right there. I don't think I've seen that from him yet, which obviously he has a lot of time to show me that.
I'll tell you what. If Julian Sayin can not only win this game, but can also show us that he can withstand blitz pressures the entire game and be able to still be somewhere around that 65%, 68% completion mark and have a good game and not turn the ball over, I think he'll skyrocket up your list a little bit, Andrew. But I don't blame you for like thinking that in a game this year where he had his biggest test defensively against, like he did not, he had a good game if you just look at the stats, but that line did not hold up and he was unable to kind of make those big plays. And so if he can kind of withstand that this week against Miami and work around it a little bit, because I do think that the rush from Miami's defense is inevitable, maybe he gets you to change your mind on him.
There's one thing I want to mention before we head out.
Yep.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, things are getting a little weird over there. Lane Kiffin may attend the Sugar Bowl with the Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry. There's 6 LSU assistants, obviously, that are coaching an Ole Miss biggest game ever. So
Right.
just want to let you guys know that if you see
Wow.
Lane Kiffin, and there's a lot of tweets that say, "Oh, well, luckily I'm not watching this on TV. I don't have to see Lane." If Lane Kiffin is in that booth, which I doubt he will be, but if Lane Kiffin is in that booth for anything, or they show him more than 3 or 4 times, I'm gonna lose my mind.
I
Because this
mean,
game is not about him.
the game is in Louisiana.
I know,
So
but this game is
I
not
don't
about
blame you.
him. It's not about him. It's about
They will
Ole Miss
100%
family.
show him more than 5 times.
Whatever.
They might
If
show
he's
him
like
more
in
than Pete
viewing
Golding.
area. I think I'm going to make a change in my top 8.
Oh shit!
Oh, here we go.
I think I want to flip
More
Carson-
editing for me. Thanks.
I think I want to
That's
flip
messed up.
Carson Beck and Julian Sayin. I'll put Julian Sayin at 5 and Carson Beck at 6 because I think Carson Beck has like extreme blow up potential in games that I have not seen from Julian Sayin.
All right.
Like he's played poorly in the big games, I think, but he hasn't like blown up like Carson Beck could.
Like 260, a touchdown and an interception for Carson Beck against Indiana. You would go, oh, that's a solid game.
Yeah, that
for
would.
Carson Beck. That's how I look at that. So,
well, you look at Marcel Reed.
So
he had what, over 2? How many? I feel like that Marcel Reed had a lot of passing yards too against Miami. Over 250, I think, at least.
They just couldn't score. Also, shout out former Rutgers linebacker Mo Toure for like laying his life on the line on the goal line at the end of that game.
That's your guy?
Dan, if you were watching that game, yeah, that kid went to Rutgers. He transferred to Miami last offseason. He played there for 4 years. Tore his ACL like twice with us. I felt bad for the guy.
Nice,
transferred out. He was very good. But yeah, that was the game-winning play right there. And
I was watching that game. Yeah, I was watching that game and just in disgust. I was like, "What the hell am I watching?" 10-3, one touchdown came in the fourth quarter with
the blocked field goal early on. It was just a brutal game.
Give me a break.
The wind also, like Miami missed how many kicks, Andrew? Was it 3?
Yeah, it's 3.
Yeah, that was just a messy game. But listen, kudos to Miami, man. They showed up and honestly, they had all the chances in the world to put the game away. Just the wind was not their friend. Was not the friend of any of the teams. And
you saw it in the kicking in the kicking contest, Mac, which is sick, by the way. The fact that he was on the actual field, it's really cool. But yeah.
Well, again, we appreciate you all tuning in for our college football playoff quarterfinal preview. I'll put all of our social media handles up in here. Make sure to watch these games, guys. They're going to be fantastic. 6, 7 actions. This time I'm looking. Every other time I do this outro, I'm always looking at the camera. You guys are playing around. I don't even see it. Dan will be rooting for his Ole Miss Rebels. I'll be rooting for the Texas Tech Red Raiders, my dark horse of this whole thing. So make sure to leave a like. Make sure to leave a comment on the video. Also subscribe, ring the bell. Really helps out a ton. Leave any questions. Well, I know I said last video that we'll address questions. We didn't really get any. So make sure to put some in there so that we have some questions to address. And if you're a Bama fan, if you are an Oregon fan, whatever fan base you are, and we went against you guys, maybe you got an issue with our QB list, put the comments down below. Let us know. We'll answer all those questions and your comments in the next video. We'll have one coming out once these games go final for next week, previewing the semi-final round as the college football season is almost over, guys. It's going to be sad when it goes away. This is some of the best football you're going to watch all season long. So I can't wait for it all to happen. Again, leave a like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.